A massive swirl of purple energy opens up right in the middle of the city. These things are called gates, and they've become a normal part of the landscape. Yoon Gaon walks past one without even a second glance. He's got bigger things on his mind. As of today, he's officially independent from his orphanage. Life as an orphan is a tough path, but thankfully, he's got a government settlement subsidy to help him start his new life. He remembers his director telling him about a system that triples your allowance if you manage to save it. Back then, he was just a kid dreaming of how many burgers that would eventually buy him. Following that advice, he saved every penny, and now his savings have officially tripled. He's ready to deposit his safety deposit, but a man in a balaclava is approaching the bank with a sword. The man's eyes glow a menacing red through his mask as he grits his teeth. Unaware of the threat, Gaon sits at the counter, asking to open a special savings account. He's doing the math. After his initial costs, he'll still have over 31 million won left for a comfortable future. The glass shatters as the robber bursts in, laughing like a maniac. People are stunned as the intruder lunges into the lobby, and everyone starts panicking. He demands that nobody move, brandishing a jagged blade. Gaon's dreams of a smooth life are already hitting a wall. The bank robber screams for everyone to get their hands up as he waves the weapon around. He's wild-eyed, and his sword features a strange, glowing red gem near the hilt. A bank guard doesn't waste any time, drawing his revolver with a steady hand. He points the gun at the robber, ordering him not to move or he'll shoot. Instead of surrendering, the intruder just gives a wide, creepy grin. He starts spinning his blade at high speed, creating a blur of steel in the air. He continues his flashy display, acting completely unbothered by the weapon pointed at him. He actually dares the guard to go ahead and shoot him. Gaon watches, terrified that he's looking at an awakened, superhuman warrior. It all started decades ago, when gates began appearing all over the world. Endless waves of monsters poured out of them, threatening humanity. To fight back, frontline warriors known as hunters stepped up to protect the world. These were people who had awakened magical powers to face the monsters head-on. They pushed past human limits to save civilization from the brink. If this robber is an awakened, then normal weapons might be completely useless against him. Gaon is worried that the bullets will just be deflected effortlessly. The guard pulls the trigger, and a single shot rings out through the bank. The bullet streaks through the air toward its target. It heads straight for the intruder, who is still standing his ground. The robber just keeps that arrogant smile on his face as the shot closes in. He swings his sword in a wide arc, clearly trying to intercept the bullet. The people inside watch in pure terror as the impact cloud erupts. Dust and smoke fill the entrance area as the movement stops. Everyone is frozen, their faces twisted in absolute shock at what they just saw. The robber lets out a quiet chuckle, looking like he's won. But then his eyes go wide as smoke starts rising from a bullet hole right in the center of his forehead. He drops flat on his face, dead instantly. His sword clatters to the floor alongside him. Gaon is biting his lip in pure embarrassment, wishing he hadn't actually been impressed by the guy for a second. The guard rushes forward, shouting to see if everyone is okay and if anyone needs help. While everyone is focused on the dead robber, the strange sword on the ground begins to glow with an eerie light. The sword actually starts speaking, calling the fallen robber a useless, pathetically weak fool. It demands that a human grab its hilt, promising to grant them immense power in exchange. The crowd is terrified, calling the talking weapon a monster as they back away. The blade continues its dark sales pitch, telling them to indulge in blood and become the ultimate being. Everyone's eyes start glowing purple as the sword's influence spreads. A young woman desperately begs an elderly lady to hold on as the dark energy starts affecting her. Parents cover their children's eyes while others pray to heaven, trying to resist the temptation. One man completely loses it, screaming about ice as the corruption takes over his mind. The scene is absolute chaos as people struggle against the mental assault. Gaon is still on his knees, seemingly frozen. Suddenly, Gaon stands up, catching the eye of a nearby man who's confused by his movement. With purple light flaring from his eyes, Goon mutters something about his precious. He suddenly lunges toward the sword. The people around him scream, thinking he's been completely bewitched. Goon has a wild, manic look on his face as he dives through the air, ignoring the warnings. He's moving with incredible speed, literally jumping over people to reach the weapon. He tucks into a roll, vaulting off the backs of bystanders as he barrels forward. His expression is pure madness, tongue hanging out as he reaches for the hilt. The bank guard tries to block his path, yelling that he won't let him pass. Goon just slides right under the guard's legs with a smirk on his face. His hand finally clamps down on the jagged hilt of the demonic blade. The moment he touches it, a massive pillar of purple fire erupts around him. He lets out a chilling laugh as the energy surges. The witnesses are horrified, realizing he successfully grabbed the monster. The purple aura intensifies, swirling around Goon as the contract begins. Everything goes white for a second as he drops to his knees, still clutching the blade. People nearby are distraught, feeling completely helpless that they couldn't stop him from being entranced. The guard tentatively approaches the kneeling boy, asking if he's still in there. Goon is in a trance-like state, his eyes glazed over as he hears a voice in his head. He finds himself in a dark mental plane, standing before a giant, glowing red eye. The sword's spirit calls him its new host. The spirit demands an offering for their contract. Goon must give up what is most precious to him. Goon is hesitant at first, but the spirit asks if he truly doesn't desire the thing he wants most. It promises him absolute power to look down upon the entire world, unrivaled by anyone. Goon grits his teeth, finally giving in and shouting that he wants it. The spirit repeats its demand. Then offer that which is most precious to you. Back in the real world, the guard jumps back in surprise as Goon suddenly stands up. He stands there silently for a moment, the dark sword gripped tightly in his hand. Then he throws his head back and lets out an absolutely insane, bone-chilling laugh. He starts sprinting through the bank lobby like a madman, still cackling. People are terrified, convinced he's been fully possessed. He vanishes out of the entrance, leaving the bank staff and customers completely stunned. Elsewhere, a man in a suit discusses the concept of corruption immunity, wondering if it actually exists. His companion, a woman with blue hair, is skeptical. He notes that since the gates opened, there hasn't been a single confirmed case of anyone being truly immune to corruption. 1 week passes. We see Goon walking down a normal city street, but things don't look good. He looks like a total mess. Shabby hair, dark circles under his eyes, and he's stumbling around with that same sword on his hip. Everyone around him gives him a wide berth. Bystanders watch Goon as he walks by, whispering about how he's carrying a real sword and must be a total lunatic. Goon grits his teeth in frustration, his jaw set as he bears the weight of their judgment. He clutches the hilt of the demonic blade, his eyes wide and trembling as he blames the weapon for everything that's gone wrong. A flashback takes him back to 1 week ago, to a job interview where the recruiter calls for the next applicant. The interviewers look on with extreme apprehension as they hear a strange, metallic clanking sound approaching. Goon enters the room in a suit, but his eyes are glowing with a manic blue light as he announces himself as a talent ready to die for the company. His face is contorted into a terrifying, wide-eyed grin that looks anything but professional. The interviewers scream in terror, rejecting him immediately and calling him a sword maniac. A giant red, rejected stamp slams down on his prospects. He tries his hand at a manual labor job moving cargo, but he's told wearing a sword is a bit much for the position. He even tries a sales position, but his crazed expression while holding the sword sends the boss into a panic. Even a simple serving job is out of the question. Nobody wants a waiter carrying a demonic weapon. Goon realizes he has to leave the sword behind if he ever wants to pass an interview. He finds a different office where the interviewer tells him the company isn't that stiff, giving him a glimmer of hope. The interviewer is impressed, giving him a thumbs up and hearing him on the spot because he looks kind and diligent. "Since you're part of the family now, let's shake hands," the man says, extending his arm. Goon is overjoyed, reaching out with both hands to accept the offer. But as they are about to touch, the demonic blade makes its presence known. The interviewer's friendly face suddenly twists into a mask of pure horror. Gon stands there awkwardly, still holding the sword that ruined his chance yet again. The interviewer screams for security, accusing Gon of being a murderer as another, rejected stamp appears. Back in the present, Gon stands alone on the street, still gripping the weapon. He looks down at the sword with pure hatred, telling it that his misery is all its fault. He tries to throw the sword away, shouting at it to get out of his life. But the sword remains firmly in his hand, a constant, unwanted companion. Gon breaks down into tears, screaming at the top of his lungs for the curse to end. The voice of the sword's spirit, Hyukro, echoes in his mind, telling him to stop resisting his destiny and to embrace the evil. Gon looks confused and defiant, stating clearly that he's not interested in its dark path. He falls to his knees, clutching his head as the spirit mocks him for holding out for a whole week. The spirit urges him to unleash his inner urges and commit acts of evil to his heart's content. Gon groans in pain, the mental pressure of the corruption reaching a breaking point. His eyes flare with a sinister light as he finally seems to cave into the spirit's demands. A dark, wide smile spreads across his face as he stops resisting. He stands up, his aura darkening as he declares that he won't hold back his urges any longer. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a handful of energy bars. With a manic look, he starts ripping into the wrappers, ready to commit his first sin. A giant gluttony sign appears above him as he stuffs his mouth with the snacks. He's eating them like a wild animal, his eyes glowing as he gives in to his hunger. Even the demonic spirit in the sword is taken aback, confused by what he's actually doing. Gon declares his evil act. He just ate multiple energy bars at once, even though you're only supposed to eat one per meal. He crushes the empty wrappers in his fist with a look of extreme intensity. He hurls the trash toward a nearby playground, shouting fire in the hole, as if it were a grenade. Gon watches the energy bar wrapper land on the ground, a self-proclaimed act of illegal dumping. He gives a manic, wide-eyed grin, explaining to a confused Hyukro that he threw the trash in a playground without even recycling. He raises his arms in triumph, declaring that there's no longer any need to hide his dark, demonic urges. Hyukro is baffled, questioning if evil karma can actually accumulate from something as trivial as littering. The reality of what he's done suddenly hits Gon, and he gasps in realization. He looks at his hands, his expression shifting from madness to horror as he wonders what on earth he has done. Tears stream down his face as he screams at the demonic blade, accusing Hyukro of corrupting him beyond repair. The red gem on the sword glows, seemingly mocking his mental breakdown. Unable to live with his sin, Gon rushes back to the trash he threw and picks it up. He walks over to a proper waste bin and carefully disposes of the wrapper, sighing in relief that he undid his crime for now. Suddenly, a dark, purple aura erupts around him, and a look of confusion crosses his face. The image of a stern-faced man in a suit, Manager Kim, appears in his mind, warning him that revering causality will have massive consequences. A swirling purple vortex opens beneath Gon, and he screams as he's sucked into the void. He snaps his eyes open with a sharp gasp, the nightmare ending as abruptly as it began. Gon finds himself sitting on the floor of his apartment, bewildered and wondering when he even got home. Sweat beads on his forehead as he tries to piece together the gaps in his memory. He places a hand on the floor and recoils. The wood is uncomfortably hot. He looks up at the air conditioner, which is running at full blast despite the window being wide open. He stares out at the city skyline, the weight of his actions beginning to settle in. He screams in agony, realizing that leaving the AC on with the window open is an act of environmental destruction that will destroy his electric bill. A terrifying thought occurs to him. Did he commit an even greater evil against his will by attempting to reverse causality? He recalls a sinful moment where he gave a man directions with only words, instead of walking him to his destination. He remembers another instance of his cruelty, where he watched an elevator door close without pressing the open button for a coworker. The weight of his guilt grows as he thinks back to secretly sitting in the priority seating on the bus, intended for the elderly and disabled. Yoon Gaon is losing his mind. He's screaming his head off in the middle of his apartment. He can't believe he actually did it. He thinks his evil deeds, which were really just littering, are the end of the world. On the floor, Hyukro is basically frying. The cursed sword tells him to turn off the floor heater because it's baking. The protagonist stays hunched over in his room. Suddenly, his stomach lets out a massive growl. The sword can't believe he's still hungry after his sinful spree. Gaon just ignores the sass and gets up. He checks the fridge, but it's a total desert in there. He's completely out of food. Time to hit the local A-Mart. It's his only choice for a cheap meal. He finds the holy grail of grocery shopping, the 50% off meat section. Gaon is feeling like a winner. With a huge grin on his face, he grabs the discounted pack. But as he walks away, the massive sword on his hip clanks loudly against the shelves. Everyone is staring at the weirdo. Someone calls out to him. Gaon stops, looking totally confused by the attention. A security guard starts grilling him. Apparently, you can't just bring a giant sword into a grocery store, even if you're a hunter. He heads to the register to pay. The cashier notices his government support card and pauses. She looks at him with total judgment. If he's not a licensed hunter, she wants to know why he's carrying a weapon around. The woman keeps lecturing him about public decency. Gaon is sweating, just wanting to disappear. Finally, the card reader beeps. The payment for his half-priced meat goes through. He doesn't wait a second. He mumbles an apology and bolts out of the store with his groceries. Back at the safety of his apartment building, that was way more social interaction than he can handle. Gaon flops onto his bed, exhausted. He realizes that everyone keeps mistaking him for a hunter because of the sword. He starts thinking, if he actually becomes a hunter, carrying the weapon around becomes perfectly legal. He pulls out his phone and starts Googling. He needs to know exactly what this hunter business is all about. He reads about the special profession that emerged to defend humanity against monsters from the dark world. There are government branches, like special operations agents who handle the most dangerous threats. Then there are the civilian hunters, which looks more like a lucrative career for freelancers. To get in, you have to pass an aptitude test and receive a license from the bureau. Gaon sits up, considering the possibility. They say hunters make a ton of money, which is exactly what he needs. Suddenly, the sword starts screaming for blood. It's been waiting for a meal since they made the contract. The young man looks at the blade. He wonders if an E-rank sword that would lose to a gun is even enough to become a hunter. Hyukro doesn't care about ranks. It just wants him to hurry up, accumulate karma, and rule the world. Gaon stares at it, getting a weird idea. He wonders if the sword can eat other things as long as they're similar to blood. He agrees to feed it. The cursed weapon is absolutely hyped to finally get its first meal. He grabs the hilt and heads to the bathroom. The red gem on the sword is practically vibrating with anticipation. He holds the blade over the toilet. Hyukro is confused for a split second, wondering why they're in the bathroom. Then a golden waterfall starts splashing all over the ancient demonic weapon. Gaon is finally giving it what it wants. In its mind, the sword thinks it's soaking in a majestic fountain of blood after centuries of thirst. But then it stops. It asks its master why this blood tastes so incredibly salty. Gaon doesn't miss a beat. He tells the sword it's just because people have high cholesterol and eat too much salt these days. He stands there in the bathroom, finishing his business while the sword greedily drinks its meal. Hyukro sighs in satisfaction. It thinks that was the best meal it's had in a long, long time. The protagonist smirks to himself. Since urine is filtered from blood, he figured it was technically close enough. He gives the blade a quick bath under the shower head. The sword thinks it's getting some top-tier service. Gaon realizes his experiment worked. If it can drink that, it'll definitely be fine with monster blood once he starts hunting. Hyukro is starting to get very suspicious. It wants to know exactly where this blood came from. Gaon tries to act tough, claiming he just stabbed some random guy on the street. The sword isn't buying the act for a second. It calls him out immediately. For a guy who felt like a villain just for littering on a playground, There's no way he actually killed someone. Gon realizes he's totally busted. He tries to ignore the sword, shouting while he finishes cleaning up in the bathroom. He stays silent, carefully wiping the blade with a towel. The sword is starting to get a really bad feeling about that salty taste. Hyukro is practically panicking now. It demands to know the truth about what it just consumed. Gon just looks at it with a blank expression. He asks if the source even matters as long as the sword is full. The weapon is absolutely horrified by the implication. Gon, however, is about to take this to a whole new level of psychological warfare. He puts on a peaceful, enlightened smile. Like he's about to drop some deep wisdom, he starts telling an old story. He brings up the legendary story of a famous monk named Wonhyo. In the tale, the monk woke up in a dark cave and drank some delicious water from what he thought was a bowl. But the next morning, he saw it was actually a human skull filled with stagnant rainwater. He realized the water only became gross because of how his mind perceived it. Gon's image transforms into a serene, Buddha-like figure. He explains that all joy and suffering are just creations of the mind. He tells the sword that it didn't actually drink blood, but something much deeper. Everything stems from perception. He keeps going with the fake philosophy, talking about how emptiness and form are the same thing. The protagonist tells the blade that only when we give something a shape does it become real. Then comes the punchline. He tells the sword that once you accept the true nature of reality, blood and urine are one and the same. The realization finally hits the ancient demonic entity. It can't believe it actually drank urine. Gon stands there in his boxers, looking completely at peace. On the floor, Hyukro lies defeated and utterly traumatized by the truth. Deep in the dark forest, a lone figure is slumped against a massive tree. Park Junsik is gasping for air, hiding in the shadows with sweat pouring down his face. The ground is littered with bodies, a grim reminder of how sideways the mission went. Junsik grits his teeth in frustration, wondering how his plan ended up like this. Suddenly, a terrifying silhouette with glowing eyes and a jagged grin looms over him. He screams as the demonic figure closes in. Back in the city, the towering Hunter Management Bureau building looms over the busy streets. Yoon Gon stands at the reception desk, awkwardly scratching his head while asking to register as a hunter. It doesn't take long for him to get his official Level 0 hunter license. He stares at the card while the clerk hands over a welcome package bag full of basic supplies. She gives him the rundown: clear at least one mission a week or the license gets revoked. Gon stands in front of the elevator with his gear, feeling like the whole process was way too easy. He's genuinely surprised there wasn't an ability test or some kind of physical trial. Hyukro is just as disappointed. The sword was really looking forward to slicing through some competition. Since he needs to hit his quota, Gon pulls out his phone to check the mission board. He finds a dark zone investigation mission with a 1,000,001 reward. The payout is so high it practically makes him scream with excitement. He doesn't even hesitate before slamming the accept button on his screen. A crowd of hunters gathers in front of a massive, swirling purple portal in the middle of the street. Gon looks around at his new peers, taking in the scene. He notices everyone is decked out in tactical gear and rifles. He's the only one bringing a sword. The veterans aren't impressed, whispering that this kid looks like a total rookie who's all style and no substance. One of the hunters, Mr. Kim, asks if this is Gon's first time on the job. Mr. Kim laughs, reminiscing about the days when he was young and reckless enough to use a sword too. The chat is cut short as an official announces the start of the Karma Index inspection. The vibe gets heavy as one hunter is flagged for a high score and barred from entering the zone. Mr. Kim explains that the index tracks corruption risk. Anything over 5,000 is a no-go. Gon listens closely, realizing how strict the Bureau is about monitoring their members. Next up is Park Junsik, who passes with a smug look and a score well under the limit. Mr. Kim is impressed by Junsik's purification rate, calling him a natural talent. He then turns back to Gon, curious if the rookie has ever had his levels checked before. The veteran explains that a lower initial index usually means you're born with a gift for hunting. Apparently, a score in the 700s is considered elite-level potential. The inspector calls for the next hunter, and Gaon prepares himself for the scan. Mr. Kim goes up first and barely passes with a score of 4,500. Now it's finally Gaon's turn to step up to the scanner. He stands still as the inspector points the device at his forehead to get a reading. She checks the screen, expecting just another routine number. Her face goes pale as the device starts screaming a warning. The hunters behind him are in total shock as they see his score is a staggering 58,000. Weapons are drawn in an instant. The team surrounds Gaon, screaming that he's already been corrupted. Gaon is caught in the middle of a nightmare, desperately calling out for Mr. Kim to help him. But there's no reasoning with them. One hunter screams as he opens fire at point-blank range. Just as things are about to get ugly, the inspector realizes she messed up. Gaon keeps his hands up, waiting for the verdict. She waves her hand frantically, apologizing for the major screw-up. It turns out she just misread the decimal point. His actual score is a measly 0.58. Gaon laughs it off, even though he has no idea what that number actually implies. The mission officially begins as the team steps through the purple portal and into a dense, dark forest. Gaon gears up with his gas mask and a small sickle, ready to do some low-level gathering. He's busy digging up weeds for the mission when Hyukro starts whining in his ear, begging for a taste of blood. One of the veterans stretches his back and calls for a break, already tired of the manual labor. They start teasing Gaon, saying a guy with such low karma doesn't even need to rest. Gaon just sighs, still annoyed that the machine's error almost got him shot in the face. The rest of the team isn't having much luck either. The forest is a total bust, and they haven't found anything valuable. While everyone is relaxing, Mr. Kim starts huffing and coughing like he's struggling to breathe. His eyes are bloodshot and wide, a clear sign that something is seriously wrong behind that mask. Gaon and the others notice the red aura around him and ask if he's showing symptoms of corruption. Mr. Kim doesn't say much and immediately jams a needle into his arm to keep himself steady. He's trembling and gasping for air, clearly pushing himself way past his limit. He claims it's fine and that a shot of morphine is all he needs to power through. Mr. Kim warns Gaon not to get cocky just because his karma is low. The zone doesn't care about stats. He reminds the rookie to take care of his mask and rest up, probably because he knows how bad things can get. The team gets back on their feet, the sound of boots crunching through the leaves filling the silence. Park Jun-sik walks up to the group, and the others ask if he's found anything worth their time. He's tired of digging for pocket change and tells everyone to gather around. He's found a goblin settlement. Deep in the village, a green-skinned goblin with glowing red eyes lets out a blood-curdling scream. The hunters don't waste any time, opening fire and shredding through the first wave of monsters. Jun-sik leads the charge, keeping his finger on the trigger as the goblins close in. He activates a skill called Accelerate, his hand glowing with a sinister red light. He turns into a blur of motion, picking off goblins with precision while calling them too slow. Gaon watches from the sidelines, feeling useless with just a sword while the big guns do all the work. He spots a small hut in the distance and decides to check it out for himself. A stray goblin lunges at him from the brush, waving a club and looking for an easy kill. Hyukro's red eye snaps open, mocking Gaon for being too kind-hearted to fight back. But Gaon isn't a pacifist. He draws his blade and cleaves the monster in two with one clean swing. He stands over the corpse, looking a bit dazed as the reality of his first kill sinks in. He remembers his days at the orphanage, where the director gave him one strict rule: never use violence against people. Little Gaon had asked the priest if that rule applied to things that weren't people. The director had given him a big thumbs up, essentially giving him the green light to go wild on monsters. With the correct answer in mind, Gaon plunges his sword into the goblin to let it feed. As the sword drinks, Gaon feels a strange, cold energy surging into his own body. Hyukro explains that he's absorbing the goblin's karma and soul, turning the kill into pure power. The sword laughs at human hunters, calling them fools for only taking the leftovers while leaving the best parts behind. Nearby, a hunter pulls out a tactical knife to start collecting trophies from the dead. Mr. Kim is busy harvesting goblin crotches, joking about how they fetch a decent price on the market. The team calls out to Gaon, and he casually tells them he took care of a stray goblin while they were busy. The team decides to focus on finding the artifact first, leaving the goblins for later. They're convinced the boss is hiding nearby. Excitement builds as they imagine the riches they'll gain. 10 million won is enough to change their lives, and everyone has a different dream for the money. The group approaches a large, ominous wooden building, its entrance adorned with human skulls mounted on stakes as a grisly warning. With guns at the ready, the hunters cautiously push open the heavy doors, their breaths hitching as they step into the dark interior. Gaon's eyes go wide behind his mask as he sees something truly horrifying inside the structure. A grotesque staff topped with a horned skull glows with a malevolent red light, pulsing with dark energy. The room is a slaughterhouse, filled with the remains of sacrifices and steeped in an atmosphere of pure dread. In the center of the room, a shadowy figure hunches low, clutching the staff and radiating a powerful, murderous intent. The creature's eyes snap open, burning with a brilliant, predatory red light as it bares its jagged teeth in a wicked grin. A roar of dark energy erupts as the goblin shaman reveals itself, its feathers and tribal garb glowing amidst a swirling crimson aura. The shaman screeches a war cry, raising its staff high to summon its dark powers against the intruders. Its face is a mask of pure malice, every line and wrinkle emphasized by the terrifying red glow of its eyes. Suddenly, a bright flash of light consumes the shaman, silencing its screams in an instant. The powerful monster collapses to the floor, dead before it could even cast a single spell. The hunters stand over it, guns still smoking. One of the hunters admits he was so startled, he just started firing blindly, but the team leader shrugs it off as a job well done. They find a small, glowing ring on the shaman's finger, an artifact that looks like it could fetch a massive price. The hunters marvel at their find, though they worry if it's a monster in disguise, which would drop its market value. Gaon reaches out to take a look, but the veteran warns him not to actually put the thing on. Hyukro's red eye narrows as it watches Gaon, a sense of foreboding settling over the magic sword. Gaon suddenly enters a trance-like state, a wild laugh escaping his lips as he gazes at the ring like it's the only thing in the world. And so Gaon was pulled into a dark, ethereal realm where a voice whispered to him, promising ultimate power. He stood there, bewildered and vulnerable. Gaon flatly refuses the offer, saying he has absolutely no need for things like power. The spirit is shocked, but Gaon mocks its limitations, asking if it can even conjure up a beef burger combo. The spirit desperately insists it can provide anything, its purple mist swirling around the unimpressed protagonist. The catch is revealed, a sacrifice is required. Gaon looks thoughtful, but he's already losing interest in the spirit's games. When the spirit asks for the souls of his kin, Gaon decides he's done and walks away, much to the spirit's annoyance. Gaon snaps back to reality, his eyes wide with surprise as he realizes his team has their guns aimed right at him. Confused, Gaon puts his hands up. The hunters tell him he started acting like a possessed man, whispering about his precious. He hands the ring back, but the atmosphere remains tense. One of the hunters, Kim Tae-jin, is hunched over and gasping for air. Tae-jin's eyes have turned a hollow, ghostly white behind his mask, a terrifying sign of advanced corruption. The team leader realizes Tae-jin is too far gone and orders everyone to evacuate the building immediately. Tae-jin insists he's fine and just needs to swap his filter, but the dark energy swirling around him says otherwise. As the team moves to leave, Park Jun-sik stops them, a cold and calculating look in his eyes. Hyukro senses a sudden threat and screams for Gaon to dodge, just as a small metallic object is thrown. A hail of gunfire erupts as the hunters are caught in a brutal ambush by their own teammate. Blood splatters against the walls. Jun-sik doesn't hesitate, spraying the room with bullets and turning his former allies into targets. Gaon scrambles for cover, diving through a doorway as bullets chew up the wooden frame behind him. Jun-sik laughs, impressed that the rookie actually had the reflexes to dodge his opening volley. Gaon's heart hammers against his ribs as he checks his gas mask. The purifier canister has been smashed to pieces. Panicked, he rips off the useless mask and screams at Jun-sik, demanding to know why he's shooting his own comrades. Jun-sik's answer is chillingly simple. It's more profitable to take all the loot for himself than to split it 5 ways. Gaon is incredulous, shouting that the Bureau will never let him get away with such a blatant betrayal. Gaon is cornered against a wall, his eyes wide as Park Jun-sik coldly explains that once the gate is cleared and he returns with the artifact, no one will ever know the truth of what happened here. With a murderous glint in his eye, Jun-sik declares that Gaon simply needs to die, and he opens fire again as the young man scrambles to find a way out. Bullets tear into the wooden walls around Gaon as he moves with surprising speed, frustrating Jun-sik, who can't believe how quickly the rookie is reacting. Gaon stays low to the ground, his mind racing for a counter-strategy while his hands instinctively grip the hilt of the disastrous magic sword, Hyukro. He makes a desperate leap from the building's porch, narrowly avoiding a lethal burst of lead that shreds the air where he stood just a second ago. Jun-sik casually reloads his rifle, his voice mocking as he asks Gaon exactly how much longer he thinks he can keep up this frantic pace. Just as Jun-sik thinks he has the upper hand, he spots a sudden movement in the corner of his eye that catches him completely off guard. Gaon puts all his strength into a throw, sending Hyukro spinning through the air like a deadly boomerang straight at the traitorous hunter. Jun-sik manages to dive out of the way just in time, laughing as he calls Gaon an idiot for throwing away his only means of defense. But the throw was just a distraction. Gaon is already closing the distance, his eyes fixed on Jun-sik with a terrifying level of focus. Jun-sik's smug expression vanishes instantly, replaced by a look of pure shock as he realizes Gaon is much closer than he anticipated. Before the hunter can bring his gun back up, Gaon is right in front of him, reaching out to catch the sword as it returns to his grasp. With a single, fluid strike, Gaon slashes through Jun-sik's rifle, the metal snapping like dry kindling amidst a shower of sparks and shattered components. Jun-sik stands frozen, staring at his broken weapon in disbelief while Gaon looms over him, the magic sword glowing with a dark, vengeful light. The tables have turned, and Jun-sik's bravado is gone, replaced by a cold sweat as he looks up at the boy he thought was an easy target. Gaon's face is partially shadowed, and there's something different about him now. The air around him feels heavy and suffocating. Suddenly, Gaon breaks into a wide, terrifyingly manic grin, his eyes dilated with an unhinged joy that makes even the seasoned hunter's blood run cold. Laughing like a madman, Gaon leaps into the air with the sword raised high, while Jun-sik turns tail and runs for his life, his composure completely shattered. A wound on the back is a swordsman's shame, Jun-sik yelled, trying to rattle the young man, right before he took a full, brutal slash from Gaon. Jun-sik screams in agony, his hand glowing with a desperate red light as he activates the ring's acceleration skill to put distance between himself and the monster chasing him. A trail of pink energy follows Jun-sik as he rockets away, but Gaon is right on his heels, swinging the sword in wide, playful arcs as if he's enjoying the hunt. With his eyes wide and a jagged smile on his face, Gaon promises he won't kill him. He'll settle for just taking one of Jun-sik's arms as a trophy. Jun-sik is absolutely hysterical now, screaming for the crazy F** seeker to stay away from him as he pushes his body to its absolute limits. The traitorous hunter flees into the depths of the forest, a man possessed by terror, while the sound of Gaon's maniacal laughter echoes through the trees behind him. Park Jun-sik ducks behind a tree, his chest heaving. He's praying that he finally shook off the guy following him. He's convinced Gaon has gone completely insane from the corruption. Jun-sik's own gas mask is busted, and he knows he needs to get out of this zone fast. The guy is starting to lose it. He stares at the corpses of the teammates he just betrayed. Now he's regretting leaving that valuable ring behind. He grits his teeth. He's going back for the loot no matter what. But he's not alone. Gaon pops up from behind the tree with a look that's pure nightmare fuel. Jun-sik loses whatever courage he had left and takes off running again. He's desperate now, just wanting to grab the artifact and reach the gate. He spots his rifle lying near one of the bodies. Thinking he's saved, he dives for the gun with a manic laugh. He doesn't even notice Go-on casually following him in the background. He grabs the rifle and looks up, only to find a massive figure blocking his path. His face goes pale as a monstrous, clawed hand reaches for him. It's Mr. Kim, but he's mutated into something unrecognizable, dripping with a thick purple aura. The monster doesn't give him a chance to fight back, grabbing him by the skull and pinning him to the ground. Even Go-on stops in his tracks, surprised to see his teammate turned into a beast. The mutated Mr. Kim stands tall, his visor glowing a menacing red as the corruption takes full control. Mr. Kim is losing it, his roar is straight-up monstrous. Go-on isn't doing much better. He's standing his ground, but the guy he's facing is literally glowing with a red aura. He dives for cover as the ground explodes behind him. Hiding behind a shed, the protagonist tries to catch his breath. His former teammate has officially crossed the line into full-blown monster territory. The hunter is clutching his head, growling like a beast. The mutation is taking over fast. And there it is. The goblin shaman's ring is practically pulsing on his finger. Go-on realizes what happened. The ring promised power if he sacrificed 3 of his own kind. It looks like Mr. Kim took the deal. His own allies are lying dead in the dirt as the payment. The young man peeks out, sweating bullets. He needs a plan, and he needs one now. A massive fist slams down, shattering the earth. This monster isn't just strong, he's purely destructive. Watching from the shadows, Go-on sees the sheer power he's up against. He thinks about making a break for it, but Hyukro isn't having it. The sword demands a fight. He argues back, pointing out that fighting usually leads to dying. The sentient blade doesn't care. It tells him he can't outrun something that fast anyway. Mr. Kim is on the prowl, sniffing the air like a predator. Sneaking away is officially off the table. Hyukro gives him the most useless advice ever. Stand your ground and die like a warrior. Go-on's face says it all. The beast lets out another ear-piercing roar, swinging blindly at anything in its path. A tree gets pulverized right where the boy was standing a second ago. He hides behind another trunk, hoping the monster's nose is as broken as its mind. Go-on checks with his weapon. Blood makes you stronger, right? To test it, he stabs Hyukro into a dead goblin. But the power gain is weak. The sword explains that since he didn't get the kill, the reward is garbage. It tells him to stop looking for handouts. You want power, you earn it. Meanwhile, the mutated hunter is losing what little humanity he had left. Go-on tries another corpse, hoping it'll be enough to bridge the gap. The red eye on the hilt flashes. Finally, it's starting to feel a little buzz. Seeing the beast closing in, the young man decides it's time to stop hiding. He charges out from cover, shouting a battle cry. He slides through the grass, narrowly avoiding a lethal swipe. But then he realizes he's in a lose-lose situation. If he doesn't hit hard, he's dead anyway. The monster roars again, its tongue lolling out. It's barely even bonded with the ring yet. Hyukro admits the guy is still new to the corruption. There's a tiny chance of survival if Go-on is unbelievably lucky. Looking at the sheer size of the thing, he isn't feeling very lucky. Suddenly he winds up and chucks the sword straight at the beast. It whistles past the monster's head. The weapon is absolutely livid at being used as a projectile. But it worked. While the beast is distracted, Go-on books it in the opposite direction. He's got a destination in mind. He just needs to remember where they put it. There it is, a literal mountain of goblin corpses they'd piled up earlier. He catches the sword as it flies back into his hand. He leaps onto the pile and drives the blade deep into the mound. Drink up. Hyukro's eye goes wide. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet of blood. A massive cyclone of dark energy erupts from the pile. Go-on stands back and watches as his weapon finally gets the recharge it needs. Go-on is standing over his improvised charging station, practically begging the sword to hurry up. But the monster is exactly in a patient mood. It lets out a low growl, eyes locked on its prey. Before the young man can even blink, the beast lunges. It's a blur of fur and claws heading straight for him. He barely dodges, looking back at the pile. The sentient blade is still doing its thing, and it's taking way too long. It's a literal game of cat and mouse now. The protagonist books it across the clearing, trying to keep the monster away from his weapon. He's sweating bullets, knowing one wrong step means he's toast. "Hey, over here," he yells, pointing at nothing to try and confuse the beast. It doesn't work. The creature is on him in a second, and he realizes he's running out of room. He remembers the catch. He can't go more than 3 meters away, or the sword teleports back and stops the recharge. With the beast roaring at his heels, he screams for Hyukro to finish up already. Finally, the blade lets out a massive pulse of energy. It's fully topped off and ready to go. Gaon's face hardens as the power returns to him. "All right, let's do this." He turns back just as the monster closes the gap, staring down the nightmare he used to call a teammate. A quick slide on the dirt saves his neck as the beast's claws whistle overhead. The monster stands over him, but the field is set. The demonic sword is glowing like a beacon in the pile behind him. It pulses one last time, a dark mist rising from the metal as it finishes its feast. Gaon grabs the hilt and spins around. The power surging through him is unlike anything he's felt before. A confident smirk plays on his lips. The hunter is about to become the hunted. The beast roars, unhinging its jaw to let out a sound that would make anyone else freeze. But Hyukro is vibrating in his hand, screaming at him to swing with everything he's got. He doesn't miss. A horizontal slash connects, sending a spray of dark blood into the air. The blade carves right through the monster's chest, shredding through muscle and bone like paper. The beast screams, but its movements are already getting sluggish. His weapon isn't done yet. Its eye flashes red as it demands the killing blow. Now stab its heart. Gaon doesn't hesitate. He lunges forward, putting his entire weight behind the thrust. The impact is brutal. The monster's torso is torn open as the black blade sinks deep. His focus is laser-sharp. He's not letting this thing get back up. But then, he caught a glimpse of something on the monster's shoulder. It's a direct hit. The monster is paralyzed as the sword starts its real work. He drives the beast into the dirt, holding it down as it thrashes. "Drink it dry," he yells, and Hyukro is more than happy to oblige. A massive vortex of purple energy erupts from the wound as the blade begins to drain the monster's life. The beast's screams turn into gurgles as its body literally begins to wither. For a split second, the monster's eyes clear. Mr. Kim seems to realize what's happening just before the light goes out for good. Meanwhile, somewhere much cleaner and quieter, alarms start blaring. A man in a suit comes sprinting down a hallway, shouting that warehouse number 6 just blew up. Again. His boss isn't thrilled. Apparently, a containment worker got bewitched by a monster, and things have gone south fast. They start arguing about logistics. The warehouses are full, and there's no more land to build on. It's a bureaucratic nightmare on top of a literal one. A tactical team of suited agents and armed soldiers marches through the facility, looking like they mean business. They're heading into the heart of Shelter 6, where the big players handle the fallout. We finally meet the man in charge, Manager Kim. He looks like he's seen it all, and his glowing red eyes suggest he's not just some office drone. He stands with Team Leader Park, looking over his units. As soon as the whole team is assembled, they're moving in to suppress whatever just broke loose. One of the subordinates grumbles as they walk, wishing they could just throw all these monsters into some kind of giant dumpster. Manager Kim remains silent for a moment, the idea of a monster-only dumpster seemingly sticking in his mind. Meanwhile, Gaon takes a moment to breathe, a relieved smile on his face as he examines a small ring with a purple gem. He stood over Mr. Kim, watching the man still taking shallow, labored breaths. He felt a secret relief that his calculations had been spot on. When he struck Mr. Kim's shoulder, the blade had successfully drained all the monster's blood and impurity. He had won, but he knew this was only the beginning. Park pulls out a scanner, and it lets out a sharp beep. He checks the reading, 1,865. It's dropped even lower than before. Park's sitting across from Gaon, nodding how his karma index plummeted from 6,300 in record time. He's impressed. Gaon basically rejected a monster's contract and cured a corrupted person like it was nothing. Park folds his hands, getting down to business. He has a favor to ask. He looks intense and asks if Gaon would be willing to act as the Bureau's trash can. Gaon pulls a confused face. Being called a trash can isn't exactly the promotion he expected. Park immediately backtracks, realizing how that sounds. He meant warehouse number 7. He explains that most cursed artifacts that absorb karma eventually corrupt the person using them. But Gaon is different. He looks at his sword, Hyukro, listening to the pitch. According to Park, Gaon doesn't just absorb karma. He digests it at an insane rate. Even after everything, Gaon's baseline index is sitting at a ridiculously low 0.58. The analysis is done, and Park has a final conclusion. Gaon waits for the verdict. Park tells him he has corruption immunity and could save the whole country. Gaon's still hung up on the warehouse part, though. Park shows off a bunch of dangerous demonic artifacts that the Bureau is forced to store. Storing even one of these items costs a fortune, tens of millions of won at a minimum. He offers Gaon 5 million won a month just to take charge of these artifacts. 5 million. Gaon's soul practically leaves his body. He's already calculating how many burgers that can buy. He's hit the jackpot. He tries to play it cool, saying he needs a little time to think it over. Park is totally fine with that. He needs to report to his superiors anyway. Gaon gives a solid nod. Deal. Cut to the Bureau Director, Oh Kyung-T, slamming a report down in total disbelief. He can't wrap his head around those karma numbers, dropping from 6,000 to 2,000 in hours. Park stands at attention, swearing he verified the data personally. The director goes silent, staring intensely at the report. It's been 10 years since the gates to the dark world first opened up. Humanity found resources, sure, but the number of demonic artifacts exploded alongside them. Eventually, things got so bad that South Korea reached a state of absolute saturation. Kyung-T taps his desk, weighing the options presented to him. A person who can digest karma this fast is a literal game changer for the Bureau. Park suggests they start testing on volunteer agents from their own team. The director slams the table again. He's all in on the idea. He officially leaves the Special Ops Division in Park's hands to handle the situation. He points a finger, telling him to make that test happen immediately. 4 days pass, and Gaon heads back into the Bureau headquarters. Park is there to meet him, checking in to see how he's been doing. Gaon says it's been quiet, but then casually mentions he awakened his magic power. Park's caught off guard. Gaon explains it happened as the karma Hyukro consumed got digested. As they step into the elevator, Gaon asks how Mr. Kim is holding up at the hospital. Hunter Kim Tae-jin is hooked up to machines in the hospital, but he's doing better. They even managed to reattach his arm. That's a huge relief for everyone involved. Back at the Bureau, Gaon waits in the elevator, wondering what's next. The doors slide open, and he's met by Park, Kang Ching-hwa, and a bunch of armed guards. A guy with a suspiciously cheerful grin introduces himself as Kim Young-ho, the chief of containment. He's eager to meet the rookie who's been making waves. Ga-on keeps it simple and introduces himself. Young-ho doesn't waste any time and leads them toward their destination. He welcomes Ga-on to the grand tour of South Korea's very own warehouse number 6. They hop into a military jeep, and the engine rumbles to life with a roar. They drive into the heart of the massive underground facility. It's huge. Ga-on's eyes go wide. He can't believe how high the ceilings are for being underground. Young-ho explains that they have to keep these artifacts far apart. If they're too close, they might trigger a chain reaction of corruption. Ga-on notices something strange and does a double take. He points out a giant block of concrete. He can't believe they actually encased the artifacts in it. Young-ho nods. Inside that concrete is a double-layered steel safe. Even a normal person couldn't break it in 100 days. The jeep keeps driving deeper and deeper into the facility. Finally, they arrive at their stop, and Young-ho hops out of the vehicle. He gestures to one of the concrete slabs, ready to start the testing. Park and Kang watch intently as the work begins. Sound of metal clanging fills the air. They crack open the concrete to reveal a glowing ring buried inside. Young-ho explains that the truly dangerous stuff is much further in, so they're starting with the low-grade gear for the test. But when he looks back, he realizes something is definitely wrong. Before he can react, the jeep peels out, throwing him to the ground. The team is left in the dust, completely confused as the jeep races away. Young-ho panics, realizing Ga-on is heading straight for the high-grade artifacts. The headlights cut through the gloom as a dark, eerie voice calls out for the artifacts to come forth. Ga-on has a manic look in his eyes, laughing like a madman as he grips the steering wheel. He's not himself. Inside the command center, the alarms go off. An intruder has just breached the level 2 restricted area. The jeep doesn't slow down for a second, barreling toward the most dangerous part of the warehouse. Security bollards slam into place, rising from the floor to block the path. But Ga-on just swerves, drifting through the obstacles like it's a game. That's when the automated defense system kicks in, and turrets slide out of the walls. The guns open fire, explosions tearing up the floor around the Jeep. The security team watches the monitors in horror. The intruder's reflexes are way too fast. They realize it's not just the driver. The demonic artifact is directing every single move. A commander shouts an order to activate blast door number 7 immediately. A massive metal shutter begins to grind shut, blocking the entire hallway. Instead of braking, Gaon slams his foot onto the gas pedal. The Jeep roars forward, sliding under the door just before it seals shut. Gaon laughs manically, shouting that nobody can stop him now. A massive explosion rocks the facility as the Jeep smashes through the final barrier. The vehicle loses control and flips violently, crashing into the restricted zone. The Jeep comes to a final, violent stop, flipped completely upside down after the crash. Smoke and dust rise from the wreckage in the middle of the secure facility. Gaon managed to survive, groaning as he drags himself out from under the mangled metal. Hyukro reminds him that it's only thanks to the magic power he awakened that he isn't dead right now. Gaon looks ahead, a strange, fixated expression taking over his face. He walks away from the smoking car, drawn toward a massive black containment unit at the end of the hall. He reaches out with a shaking hand, a frantic, obsessive energy taking hold of him. He's completely gone, drooling as he cries out that he's finally found his precious. He begins hacking at the containment unit with everything he's got. Every strike sends out a shower of sparks as he screams that the treasure is his. Gon complains about how hard the wall is, but Hyukro just tells him to keep swinging. He doesn't stop until he finally breaks through the heavy metal plating. Just as he's about to reach inside, a cold voice commands him to stop right there. It's Kang Chunghwa, and she's got a massive energy cannon aimed right at him. Gon doesn't even look back, his manic grin wide as he tells her to back off. He's completely obsessed, screaming about his treasure as he prepares to take it. Chunghwa pulls the trigger, and a massive beam of energy erupts from her cannon. A huge explosion fills the chamber, engulfing everything in a wall of fire. She stops firing, waiting for the dust and smoke to settle around her. Her eyes go wide in shock as she realizes something is very wrong. The smoke clears, revealing Gaon standing there, holding a pulsating red heart-like artifact. Chunghwa can't believe her eyes, letting out a scream of pure horror. Instead of running, Gaon stuffs the entire thing into his mouth and starts eating it. Chunghwa can only watch in absolute disgust as he starts chewing on the demonic artifact. He actually looks like he's enjoying it, describing the texture as nice and chewy. He even goes into detail about the sweet juice inside as he swallows the entire thing down. He lets out a satisfied laugh, about to give a final score for his bizarre snack. But Chunghwa has seen enough and opens fire again, sending him running in terror. As he runs, Hyukro tells him to start using the power of the heart he just ate. Chunghwa keeps up the pressure, her Gatling gun tearing up the ground all around him. Hyukro urges him to focus his magic power right now if he wants to survive. Gaon concentrates, imagining the new power circulating through his entire system. Suddenly, he notices the bullets flying past his head in slow motion. Chunghwa is firing at point-blank range, but the bullets seem like they're barely moving to him. He realizes that time feels like it's completely stopped, giving him a massive advantage. He's amazed by the new sensation, but he has no idea how to actually turn this power off. Chunghwa continues her relentless assault, determined to stop the intruder. She pauses for a second, looking completely baffled by what's happening. Gaon suddenly stops running and tries to call for a quick timeout. He begs her to negotiate, promising that he'll pay for every single thing he's broken today. Chunghwa lowers her weapon slightly, asking if he's actually back in his right mind. Gaon insists he is, even offering to cover the costs for the car repairs and the broken glass wall. Yoon-gaeon flashed a sheepish grin, trying to look harmless even as the Jeep exploded right after he finished speaking, with the chaos still burning fiercely behind his back. A heavy silence falls between them as a stray tire from the flipped Jeep bounces away, with Kang Chunghwa keeping her weapon locked on the young man. Gaon's face turns pale with fear as he desperately offers to settle the massive damages for just the cost of a scrapped car. Demonic artifacts have a nasty way of bewitching people, drawing them into a dangerous trap. Yoon-gaeon might be immune to corruption, but he's still wide open to being enchanted by the wrong magic item. His karma score has taken a massive dive, settling at a much safer level. Park Do-kyung points out that the higher the initial score, the faster the recovery seems to be. Gon wonders why it spiked at all, so the boss explains it's due to the demonic vessel he's carrying. These vessels are artifacts that fuse with the host's body, and using them only makes the karma flare up more. The one inside Gon is the heart of Swift Stream. It speeds up his body so much that the world looks like it's in slow motion. It's powerful, but it's got a bloody history. A previous wielder lost control and slaughtered 2,000 people in just 6 seconds during a major disaster. Gon gulps as the weight of what's inside him starts to sink in. Team leader Park figures it's actually a relief that something so dangerous ended up with someone like him. But there's a catch. He tells Gon he's got to destroy his own heart if he ever dies so nobody else can take it. Park explains that once he levels up to 3, handling even special-grade artifacts will be a breeze. The only way to get there is to keep fighting in the Dark Zone, cycling his karma over and over. That gets Gon thinking about how he actually absorbs the stuff. He realizes he doesn't necessarily need the Dark Zone if he's got other ways to fill his tank. He gets a pretty unhinged look in his eyes while thinking about poking people with his sword. 2 days later, Park is covered in bandages from head to toe, looking like he barely survived the therapy. He's finally getting discharged, and despite the wounds, he's actually feeling better than ever. A quick scan confirms his karma levels are back to normal. The boss flexes, thrilled that his head is clear and the stiffness in his shoulders is finally gone. Kang Ching-hwa isn't impressed, reminding them how Gon kept stabbing them just to find the right spot. Gon casually mentions he's found the perfect spot to aim for next time, which does not help her mood. Even his sword, Hyukro, is hungry for more blood after getting a taste of theirs. Moving on to business, Park hands over a folder for Gon to look through. Along with guarding artifacts, they want him to handle special therapy duties. To the team leader, Gon's ability is a miracle cure that no doctor on Earth can provide. They sit down in the meeting room to go over the contract terms and safety precautions. Park points out where to sign and where to put his bank details for the direct deposit. Gon has one request: keep just $1,000,000 and donate the rest of his first paycheck to an orphanage. That kind of selfless move officially makes him part of the family in the boss's eyes. Park tells him to start calling him Bro and Agent Kang Big Sis, but Gon isn't so sure. He tells the team leader he looks way too old for that, sending the guy into a sobbing mess over being only 28. Trying to move past the awkwardness, Ching-hwa brings out a special box. The Bureau has decided to issue some support talismans to help Gon out on his mission. The first is the Ring of Lightning, which can channel electricity straight through his blade. As soon as he touches it, the sword crackles with blue energy, but it's not a happy spark. Hyukro starts screaming about killing its host for bringing in a rival, forcing Gon to apologize to the ring. Next up is a gold necklace designed to grant resistance against mental manipulation. Park wants to test it out right away with a weaker demonic artifact they have on hand. He reaches for the latch of the container. Before he can even open it, Gon goes full Gollum, lunging for the box and screaming about his precious. To wrap things up, he's given a steel frame bracelet specifically designed to toughen up his body. Next stop, the Bureau's training room. Kang Ching-hwa explains she's been assigned to oversee his training, since she's also got a demonic vessel tucked away inside her. The plan is to mix some basic conditioning with actual practice on how to control that dangerous vessel of his. Since they already agreed to drop the formalities, Gon suggests he just start calling her Big Sis. She's a little caught off guard but rolls with it, calling him Little Bro in return. Training is brutal. Ching-hwa believes a healthy body is the only way to build up a real resistance. She pushes him to tap into the heart of Swift Stream bit by bit, leaving him screaming and gasping for air on the floor. Right in the middle of it, a soldier pops his head in, looking for that special therapy he's heard so much about. Gon gets this wild, terrifying grin and promises to get right to the treating part, which we all know means stabbing. And so he pulls double duty, clearing out the soldiers' karma by literally shish kebabbing them. Colonel Zhou Yangi isn't happy about it, though, storming in and calling everyone crazy bastards. He's livid that his men were coaxed into this therapy, only to end up hospitalized. Ching-hwa keeps her cool, reminding the colonel that the soldiers requested civilian treatment of their own free will. But the colonel can't wrap his head around how stabbing people is supposed to be medical help. She isn't backing down, pointing out that they've got all the official medical request documents signed and sealed. Zhou Yangi slams the table, furious that 22 of his men are now out of commission when they need to sweep a gate. Ching-hwa shoots back with a cold look, asking if he was really going to deploy men with critical karma levels into a combat zone. Gon chiming in doesn't help either, as he points out that sending them in like that would have guaranteed they'd turn. The colonel shouts that soldiers are supposed to obey orders and lay down their lives. High karma be damned. He's actually fine with sending men into the dark zone, while blocking the very treatment that could save them from corruption. Something finally clicks in Gaon's head as he listens to this guy's logic. He thinks he's solved the mystery. He points right at the colonel's face and declares him the one who's actually corrupted. Zhou Yangyi is just confused, but Gaon is convinced the colonel is trying to sabotage his own soldiers. Naturally, Gaon decides the only fix is more therapy and lunges at him with that demonic sword. Cut to a beautiful blue sky, much more peaceful than what just happened. Gaon looks pretty tired of all the drama. He steps out of the station, squinting at the sunlight and finally breathing in some fresh air. Team leader Park Du-kyung is waiting for him, joking about whether he should have brought some tofu for his friends' release. He shows Gaon a picture of the colonel in a hospital bed. Turns out the guy needs 14 weeks to recover from his treatment. Gaon is genuinely shocked, thinking his stabbing was a perfect cure and the guy should have been healed by now. Park just gives him a blank stare, realizing his new rookie is even more unhinged than he thought. The boss explains the guy wasn't actually corrupted. He'd just never set foot in a dark zone before. It turns out the colonel was just sacrificing his men's health to keep his promotion evaluations looking good. Gaon thinks the guy is a monster, but Park just sighs, glad they're hunters and exempt from all that military nonsense. Anyway, it's time for some real work as a dark zone mission is coming up. They arrive at the mobilization site, where a swirling purple portal is already active in the middle of a parking lot. The team leader greets his squad as Gaon trails behind, still carrying that jagged sword of his. It's time for some introductions as Park presents the members of Special Ops Team 2. First up is Jang Tae-shik, a cheerful guy wielding a massive mace who's excited to finally work together. Then there's Min Do-hyun, the team's spearman, who looks a whole lot more serious than his partner. He bows politely to his new teammates, ready to get this show on the road. But Park Du-kyung's expression shifts. It looks like they've already run into their first major headache. A massive, swirling purple gate is poolsing in the middle of the base, guarded by soldiers who don't look too happy to see them. Kang Chung-hwa steps up, stating clearly that their Special Ops Division is the one assigned to clear this gate. A military officer starts yelling at them, blocking their path and insisting that the search isn't finished yet. Chung-hwa's eyes narrow. It's been 3 days since the gate opened. She wants to know exactly why the search is taking so long. The officer stammers about unexpected circumstances causing delays, but he's sweating bullets. Gaon catches a whiff of something foul, the metallic, unmistakable scent of blood coming from the soldiers. Park Du-kyung tries to reason with the man, emphasizing that time is of the essence if they want to raid the gate properly. But as he points out, the company commander is personally standing in their way, refusing them entry. A wounded soldier pleads with the group, desperate because a Sergeant Beak is still trapped inside and is dangerously close to corrupting. The officer snaps at the soldier to shut up and tells the hunters to come back later. Gaon watches the exchange, wondering if these officers are really willing to let a man die just to cover their own asses. He checks his phone, scrolling through some very interesting information. He finds exactly what he's looking for. It seems the officers were happy to leave the enlisted men to die while they themselves applied for special therapy. Gaon's grin turns predatory as he asks Hyukro if he's thirsty for some blood. The sword's response is an enthusiastic yes. The commanding officer continues his power trip, shouting that if he says they can't enter, then that's final. Gaon steps forward, confirming the man's name as Company Commander Park Man-ho, and nodding that he requested the therapy. Before the officer can even blink, Gaon is on him, gleefully commencing the requested therapy with a brutal stab. The other soldiers watch in horror as their commander goes down, realizing this crazy bastard is even worse than Colonel Joe. Gaon isn't done yet. He licks his lips and checks his list for the next lucky patient in command. First Lieutenant Ju Yangwoo is the next one up, and he looks like he's about to faint from pure terror. Gaon tackles him with a manic laugh, eager to provide the medical assistance the lieutenant asked for. The soldiers can only watch as the lieutenant screams, realizing there's no stopping this human hurricane. Gaon's eyes glow with a terrifying red light as he looks for more patients among the brass. The hunter's new teammates watch the carnage, wondering if this is actually okay, while Gaon leaps at another officer. Park Du-kyung just shrugs it off, telling Chung-hwa that it's technically medical therapy, just like they requested. With the path finally cleared of bureaucratic red tape, the team prepares to enter the gate. They step through the portal into a dark, foggy forest, weapons drawn and senses sharp. Park Du-kyung outlines the mission, clear the gate, close it up, and find Sergeant Beak if he's still alive. He explains that the sergeant likely walked into the fog on his own, probably because he was already being bewitched. Gon notices the thick mist and asks if they should be wearing gas masks, but Chingachwa tells him his magic power will protect him. Suddenly, Chingachwa holds up a hand, her sharp eyes spotting something through the dense foliage. She checks a device on her arm, detecting multiple thermal signatures just 500 meters ahead of them. Park Dukhyung gives a silent hand signal, and the team instantly falls into their combat formation. Min Do-hyun and Jang Tae-shik take the lead, their weapons ready as the rest of the team follows close behind. Chingachwa calls Gon over, telling him to step up and lend her a shoulder for her next move. Gon is a bit confused but complies, letting her rest a massive, multi-barreled Gatling gun right on his shoulder. She doesn't waste any time, opening fire and lighting up the dark forest with a hail of magic bullets. Pack after pack of monstrous, red-eyed wolves are torn apart by the relentless barrage, their cries filling the air. The monsters try to charge, but they're no match for the sheer firepower Chingachwa is unleashing from her human mount. Gon stands firm, acting as the perfect stabilizer while his big sis turns the forest floor into a monster graveyard. A feral werewolf leaps from the foliage, its jaws wide and eyes glowing red. But Gon's Gatling gun is already spitting fire. Jang Tae-shik holds the line, slamming his heavy shield into another beast as it tries to pounce. With a determined look, Jang Tae-shik readies his massive, chain-linked mace for a devastating counterattack. He swings the heavy weapon in a wide arc, the mace whistling through the air with incredible force. The enchanted mace connects with explosive power, sending several monsters flying in a burst of light and shattered bone. Suddenly, a spear tip cuts through the air with pinpoint accuracy. Min Do-hyun executes a perfect thrust, skewering a monster as it attempts to flank the group. Park Dukhyung watches his team work from the sidelines, casually asking if they need him to lend a hand. Jang Tae-shik immediately shouts back for him to stay back, knowing how chaotic things get when the boss joins in. Min Do-hyun adds his voice to the warning, reminding everyone that they're in a dense forest where fire could be a problem. Kang Chingachwa doesn't mince words, telling the team leader he'll only make things more complicated if he starts blasting. Gon stands amidst the rising white mist, Hyukro's voice ringing in his head, hungrily demanding the blood of their enemies. Jang Tae-shik notices the unnatural fog rolling in and calls out to the team leader, realizing the situation is changing. Through the thick haze, Gon hears a faint, enchanting melody that stops him in his tracks. Mesmerized by the beautiful music, Gon begins to wander away from the group, ignoring Hyukro's frantic questions. Hyukro screams for his host to snap out of it, but the boy is already lost in a daze, following the song deeper into the mist. Gon's eyes widen as a figure finally emerges from the fog, more stunning than anything he expected. A beautiful dark elf with long, silver hair greets him calmly, as if she had been waiting for his arrival. Gon is momentarily stunned by the sight of a real elf, sitting gracefully on a rock with a flute in her hand. Shaking off his stupor, he asks her if she's seen a missing soldier named Beak Jinsung. The dark elf smiles cryptically, explaining that they are keeping the wayward outsider safe in their village. Hyukro isn't buying it for a second, sensing the sinister undertones of her protection and calling it out as kidnapping. The elf extends a delicate hand, her purple magic swirling around her as she invites Gon to follow her home. Completely under her spell, Gon's face flushes a deep red as he eagerly agrees to go wherever she leads. Hyukro is panicking. His host has clearly lost his mind, and no matter how much the sword yells, he can't get through to him. It's official, Gon is totally bewitched. He's wandering toward the dark elf like a zombie, completely oblivious to his weapon's warnings. The guy is literally drooling. He's so focused on how kind this beautiful stranger is that he's already looking for a way to pay her back. That's when his twisted logic kicks in. He remembers that hanging out in a dark zone like this means your karma score is probably hitting record highs. To Gon, a local resident like this elf must be absolutely overflowing with corruption. In his head, she's not a monster. She's a patient who needs immediate attention. He stops to politely thank her for the warm welcome. She plays along, telling him it's no big deal, likely thinking she's got him right where she wants him. That's when Gon's face goes full psycho. He decides to show his appreciation the only way he knows how, plunging his sword right into her chest. Even the demonic sword is horrified. Hyukro finally realizes that his host is the type of crazy person who commits violence out of pure, unadulterated goodwill.